Shiori Ino was born on September 18, 1978, in Saitama Prefecture, Japan. She was a quiet and diligent student with her whole life ahead of her. At the age of 21, she commuted between her university in Tokyo and her family home in Saitama, spent a lot of time with family and friends, and had clear plans for her future. She lived with her parents and her younger brother, who was 14 at the time. In January 1999, Shiori met Kazuhito Komatsu. Their encounter took place at a game arcade where he happened to help her at one of the machines. Kazuhito presented himself as a wealthy businessman, claiming to own real estate and companies and projecting an image of influence and power. However, at the start, he lied about his identity. He called himself Kazuhiko and claimed to be 24 years old, even though he was actually 26. Shiori later discovered his real name and age in his car or on his driver's license. In reality, Kazuhito was heavily in debt, had underworld connections, and reportedly ran brothels, disguised as massage parlors. He was skilled at appearing wealthy and successful, wearing expensive suits, driving luxury cars, and projecting confidence. From the beginning, Kazuhito showed controlling tendencies. He even threatened a young man Shiori knew from university, warning him to stay away from her. At first, despite her unease, Shiori decided to stay with Kazuhito. Their relationship began in February 1999. Soon, Kazuhito's manipulative behavior became clear. He demanded to be near her at all times, monitored her phone calls and emails, and kept track of her meetings with friends. "You're not going out without me," he would say repeatedly. "I need to know where you are and who you're with." He forbade her from meeting certain friends, especially male classmates, and constantly criticized her clothing and behavior. "Dress properly, I don't want other men looking at you," he would say when she was leaving for university. Kazuhito required Shiori to report her daily plans to him. Any delay or deviation triggered anger and accusations. Alongside these strict rules, he manipulated her emotionally. "If you really loved me, you wouldn't do anything without me," she often heard. He instilled guilt whenever she asserted herself. He frequently told her, "You're nothing without me. No one will ever understand or protect you." He demanded constant attention and closeness. Even while she studied, he would check whether she was really working or merely pretending. Expensive gifts, outings, and constant attention were used to increase her dependence. By mid-1999, after months of manipulation and control, Shiori made the final decision to end the relationship. She wanted her freedom back and could no longer endure Kazuhito's psychological pressure. Immediately after the breakup, Kazuhito escalated his stalking. He reacted with rage, threats, and humiliation. "You're nothing without me," he shouted at her. "Without my money, you'd be out on the street and no one would care about you." In text messages and letters, he wrote, "I'm always watching you, and if you leave me, you'll lose everything that matters to you." Kazuhito appeared at her home at night, parking his car in front of the driveway with loud music and yelling insults like "slut" and "whore" toward her windows. He followed her on the street, to the store, and to the train station, never missing an opportunity to intimidate her. His harassment didn't stop there. He sent anonymous letters full of sexual slurs to her university and friends, portraying Shiori as a greedy slut and a whore. Flyers defaming her were distributed in her neighborhood, labeling her as someone who used men for luxury. Neighbors became suspicious of her, and the psychological pressure on Shiori grew enormously. He also spread lies about her father at his workplace, putting the whole family under pressure. Kazuhito's family was also involved. His brother, Takeshi Komatsu, 29, was his business partner and significantly more involved than previously assumed. He coordinated part of the activities against Shiori and helped intimidate her family. Along with their mother and sister, the family portrayed Shiori as the one to blame, claiming she had pushed Kazuhito into his actions. The situation became particularly threatening when Takeshi showed up at Shiori's family home, threatening both her and her father and warning, "If you keep provoking Kazuhito, it will be dangerous for you." Shiori desperately sought help from the police. She and her family went to the Kagawa police station multiple times, presenting flyers, reporting threats, letters, and constant surveillance, and explaining how terrified she felt. The officers often responded dismissively or even blamed her with statements like, "If you accept so many gifts and then leave him, it is no wonder something happened to you." Police records later reflected a portrayal of Shiori in a negative light. The officers shifted the blame without seriously investigating Kazuhito's criminal connections. In the late 1990s, stalking was still a relatively new concept in Japan's legal system. Many police officers did not understand that victims often cannot simply walk away because the perpetrator is obsessive, manipulative, and dangerous. Instead of taking the threat seriously, Shiori's reports were often dismissed or downplayed. In early October 1999, Kazuhito began organizing several accomplices to plan Shiori's murder. Besides his brother Takeshi Komatsu and the hired killer Yoshifumi Kubota, 34, who carried out the attack, Yoshihiro Mori, 28, was tasked with monitoring Shiori's movements, and Takashi Endo, 32, coordinated logistical support. Each had a clearly defined role. On October 26, 1999, around noon, Kubota ambushed Shiori at Kagawa Station. Several bystanders witnessed the attack. Kubota stabbed her multiple times in the torso and abdomen as she returned from shopping. She attempted to escape but was struck repeatedly. She lost consciousness quickly and died at the scene from internal injuries. Emergency responders arrived promptly but could not save her. Reports from Shiori's family and friends about threats, letters, and Kazuhito's nighttime appearances, along with clues at the crime scene, led the police to him and his accomplices. Many police officers tried to cover up their own failures in pursuing Kazuhito. Instead of going after the perpetrators, they criticized Shiori, questioned her actions, and made it seem as if she was to blame. The media picked this up, which kept Shiori being defamed even after her death. Social biases played a role too. In Japan, women who were victims of harassment or violence were often held responsible. This allowed the police to deflect criticism and hide their failures until a journalist uncovered the contradictions and brought the truth to light. The journalist investigated inconsistencies in the police reports, interviewed Shiori's family, and exposed the criminal connections of Kazuhito and his accomplices. By publishing his findings, he showed that Shiori was the victim, not the culprit, and revealed how police bias and negligence had allowed her harassment and defamation to continue. After having his accomplices carry out Shiori's murder, Kazuhito immediately fled Kagawa, moving through other cities such as Nagoya, Osaka, and finally Kyoto. The police conducted an intensive search for him, and media reports had begun linking his name to the crime. He knew that arrest was imminent and that he would likely face a life sentence. On December 18, 1999, he slit his wrists in a small apartment in Kyoto. It was a final act to avoid the shame of a public arrest and the legal consequences he would have faced. The perpetrators' sentences were as follows. Yoshifumi Kubota, 34, received life imprisonment for delivering the fatal stabs. Yoshihiro Mori, 28, was sentenced to 14 years for monitoring Shiori and assisting the crime. Takashi Endo, 32, received 12 years for coordinating logistics. Takeshi Komatsu, 29, Kazuhito's brother and business partner, was sentenced to 8 years for involvement in planning, intimidating Shiori's family, and coordinating the crime. Today, the perpetrators are in different stages of their sentences. Yoshifumi Kubota remains serving his life term. Yoshihiro Mori, Takashi Endo, and Takeshi Komatsu have either completed or are partially serving their sentences. The Komatsu family has largely withdrawn from public life, and little reliable information exists about Kazuhito's parents or siblings. Shiori Ino's murder and years of stalking heightened awareness in Japan about such dangers. Japan's anti-stalking law was strengthened, allowing police to issue restraining orders, enforce contact bans, and quickly prosecute repeat offenders. Cases like Shiori's have led to stricter enforcement, increased public awareness, and better protection for victims.